atrocious.
Okay.
So that was the teaser trailer. Okay. Can people hear me okay?
Yep.
Wonderful.
Yep.
So, um, about 15 years ago, I started photographing people that work at night. It was something I was interested in. I did a lot of work at night over the years, um, and it just interested me. And I always wanted to do firefighters as part of that. Um, and eventually I went to the media affairs people at the Philadelphia Fire Department, and they were being difficult about the whole thing, and nothing was moving along. So I took the initiative and I just walked 2 blocks to our local firehouse and asked to see the captain. And I met Captain Thomas Johnson, and we just kind of clicked, and he was interested. He contacted media relations and got the thing going. And on October 2019, I went in for the first of 2 nights, and it seemed to be like it'd be a really good project. And then COVID hit, and pretty much for the next 18 months, I don't think I photographed there at all, except for once. And so when COVID was um, quieting down, we tried to go back to media relations, and finally Captain Johnson said, let's just go ahead. I have the authority to approve, your ride-alongs here. And I signed the paperwork and I started showing up in as many nights as I could when Captain Johnson's platoon would be on duty. And for the next 2 or 3 years, I was there for a total of about 45 nights, from 6 p.m. to 6 or 7 in the morning. The the firehouse at Fourth and Arch, which you see in this photo, had for most of that time a ladder truck, ladder two, an engine with a high pressure remote squirt, and engine eight, an ambulance, Medic 44, and a battalion squad car for Battalion 4. The battalion chief had his office in this firehouse, but commanded a number of firehouses in the geographic area. So frequently he would be called out to work with other firehouses, um, and I would ride along with him. So I got to see a lot of firefighters, not just the ones in this firehouse. Um, there was a
Oh,
lot of
Ted, excuse me.
embarrassing. It takes a minute for the slideshow to work.
Okay.
Up here. Um, this is the obviously the outside of the firehouse. So as I was saying, there's a lot of downtime at night, um, and a lot of the firefighters. There's a sleeping room with about 8 or 10 beds, and a lot of people will just go to sleep for several hours if there are no calls. Um, all right, let's see. There we go. All right. Everyone can see the second photo.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
So so these are the apparatus that they had in the firehouse, the engine, the ladder, the command car. Um, this is just downtime. So this is Captain Johnson. He commanded the entire firehouse, but also commanded the ladder when it went out on calls. He was transferred out of the firehouse in August 22 and is scheduled to retire from over 21 years in the department at the end of this month. Prior to joining the department, he spent 3.5 years active duty in the Army and later another 18 years in the reserves. And as I indicated before, he really made this project happen, and I can't thank him enough. This is Battalion Chief Mark Matthews, who was there the first night of the project and there for the next year or so. We're in the command car on our way to a fire. We actually had to go to the fire twice because no one could find the fire on the first visit. It was inside the walls and eventually put out. Before joining the department, Captain Chief Matthews had been in the Navy and Air Force and served as a crew chief on on Navy helicopters in the first Gulf War. His comment on the department was, "I love this job. I can't believe they let me do this." And I've heard similar sentiments from other firefighters. This is Battalion Chief James McKenna, who came into Battalion 4 sometime in 2020 21. He told me that even as a kid, he wanted to be a firefighter. He was very good to work with because when we were on our way to a call, he'd be busy with the computer and with all the communication stuff. But when we were coming home, he would carefully explain to me everything that had happened so that I would understand what they were doing, what they were not doing, who screwed up. He was really, really helpful. The one on the right is then Lieutenant Christopher Walter, who was in charge of the Engine 8. He's the son and grandson of firefighters. And in March of this year, he was promoted to captain and is now in a different firehouse. I probably spent most of my time riding with him in the engine during the time I was there. He's here with firefighter Michael Keenan on a fire call for a high rise in Center City. This is the truck at 8th. I'm trying to remember which one. This is Engine 8 in assisting on a medical team at the corner of 8th and Market, where they had to go into a SEPTA station. For those of you who are from out of town, SEPTA is the Southeastern Pennsylvania Transportation Authority, or what we call our subway. This is the watch desk at the firehouse, where a firefighter is always stationed to monitor incoming information on the radios and computer system and to ring the alarm bells when any of the apparatus have to be dispatched. Two pieces of equipment you'll be interested in this photo. On the watch desk is a flat screen TV showing sports, movies, Netflix, HBO, and a host of other entertainment things. You would be surprised how much you are able to see in a 12-hour shift on these flat screen TVs. The blue light box at the top right is a bug zapper because for some reason they could not get rid of the mosquitoes inside the firehouse. Between about 10 p.m. and 5 a.m., the watch desk area is usually dark, except during emergencies. Behind the firefighter in the forefront is Captain Johnson sitting as an acting battalion chief for that shift. This is Cinder, the firehouse cat. Captain Johnson picked him up at a local shelter and named him Cinder. He was very scrawny when he first came in and would beg everybody for treats. And of course, everybody loved giving him treats. By the time I left, Cinder was overweight and needed to have his treats limited. On slow nights, I would actually follow Cinder around the station house and photograph him. He was good to photograph. Some of the firefighters would regularly exercise during the night. Um, and there were a range of exercise machines and weights in the recreation room. Um, he decided to do this out here. Firefighters are known for their station cooking. It is not a myth. Delta Platoon had a talented group of cooks that produced great meals. I would eat with them every night that I was there, and in return, I would bring dessert. Occasionally, an alarm would go off in the middle of the dinner, and we would have to run off and attend to the call and then come back and pick up where we left off. Um, this is firefighter Mustafa Johnson enjoying a lobster about 1 o'clock in the morning. This was not paid for by the meal plan. He got this himself and appeared to enjoy it immensely. Firefighters do not just put out fires. They spend a fair amount of time doing other protective things, such as in this case, rescuing people trapped in stuck elevators.
Oh, Jesus.
This was a SEPTA elevator in in the tunnels near City Hall. They got him out. As I said, the firehouse had two ambulances for most of the time I was there. They would go on calls much more regularly than the fire apparatus. And maybe 10, 12 times at night, just constantly going out. There were certain calls where policy dictated that one of the engine or the ladder would go with the ambulance to assist. For example, when victims were in subway stations and they needed help physically getting the people out of there. This was an unconscious passenger on a public bus late at night who had to be transported to the hospital, and the firefighters had to physically get him off of the bus. This was somebody who fell down a flight of stairs in one of the busiest streets in the neighborhood where all the bars and restaurants were. And this was, I think, a Saturday night, and very difficult to get him out of there and to get the ambulance out of there once they were done. This is firefighter Greg Fortunato, who on this night was assigned as a medic, and he's going down the stairs to the subway station um, to assist in somebody who was having a medical emergency. Um, this was somebody who apparently fell on the tracks at the main subway station in City Hall. The person on the left, extreme left, is the battalion chief, McKenna, um, supervising the rescue. This is fire service paramedic Teresa Height, who taught me a lot about how the station worked when I first got there. And you can see her restocking the ambulance in the at night back in the station. When there was a real emergency, everyone rushes to their vehicles and they're on their way, usually within 60 seconds. Fire alarms in Center City are treated with the highest urgency because a fire in a high rise imperils hundreds of people or more. It can be difficult to extract people in the building, and the fire can spread to other high rises in the neighborhood. So those were the highest priority of anything that they deal with. This is a medical team arriving at a authentic fire. There must have been five, six ladders and engines there for this. Um, these are firefighters responding to an alarm at a major Center City high-rise hotel. Fortunately, it wound up being a very small incident. I can't remember if it was like a burning circuit breaker in the basement or something smoking, but it was fortunately taken care of very quickly. Often, I think usually when there is uh, a fire emergency and the engine goes out, the driver is responsible for hooking it up to a hydrant so that the water in the truck is constantly replenished and it can do its high intensity squirt on any fires. This was a fire at a an abandoned SEPTA electrical station in Center City around 2:30 in the morning. You can see the light from the fire in the window on the left, and there were a number of engines and ladder trucks responding to this. Here's you can see the squirt on the truck, excuse me, on the engine, shooting water into the fire. This is firefighters at a quite good restaurant in the middle of Center City. Fortunately, it was a very small fire and they put it out quickly. Um, Firefighters in Battalion 4 putting out a small fire in a residence in North Philadelphia. A fire was located in a large building in Center City, and it was not visible outside the building, but they could tell there was a fire, so they had to break in using a tool that would cut through the garage door there. Um, this is the same fire. The sparks are from um, I think it was like an acetylene torch burning through the metal um, door of the garage there. And as you can see, there were an awful lot of people who responded to this call. Um, the big grin on the firefighter in the middle is evidence that they successfully put it out and were able to all go home or back to their stations. This is another fire where the medical team stands by if they were needed. This was actually my first night with the platoon. This is firefighter Daquan Pryor, who I didn't see there a lot because I usually was in the engine, he was in the ladder. He's facing the rear behind the driver of ladder two during a call. And the red safety light just gave it a nice look. I always like this as a portrait. Some of the firefighters rejoining the engine during a call, assisting a medical call. Um, the one on the left is Brian Slaughter, and I can't tell who the one on the right is. And hopefully, after my cataract surgery ends, I'll be able to identify him. Uh, this is firefighter Aaron Walker, who was not regularly assigned to Engine 8, but was on temporary assignment on the night of the SEPTA switch station fire. Excuse me, electrical station fire. This is firefighter Rebecca Echevarria, normally assigned to engine 20, but she was on this occasion was at a emergency at a parking garage where a civilian had gotten his hand trapped in the fuel tank door of a minivan. And since they were cutting through the metal, they wanted to make sure that they had a way of putting out any sparks or any fire. This is Christmas at the watch desk, and this was just before Christmas of 2023. And this is Greg Fortunato again. I wound up spending a lot of time with him as well because he took watch duty a lot, and I would always stay there. Some of you may remember the movie Seven Samurai, a famous Japanese movie from a long time ago. This is a scene where the seven samurai warriors had been recruited to protect a small village of farmers. And they find out that one of their number is really not a samurai, he's simply a peasant himself masquerading as a samurai. And so one of the real ones says, "Is he really a samurai?" And another replies, "In his own mind, anyway." I liked it because I always liked the movie, and because the firefighters and the medics may not be samurai, but they are the real deal in what they do. They're trained to assist people. They work hard at it, and that's their life is to protect us farmers when we need them. It was a great pleasure to be with them and share time with them and to document their work. And finally, this is just outside the firehouse. And somebody did, maybe the Mural Arts Project did a mural for the uh, about the firefighters. And if you look closely, you can see there's a stylized bust of Benjamin Franklin. And just behind him is a painted silhouette copying the form of the statue. And the other things up there are all to honor the firefighters. Benjamin Franklin actually created what in 1736 created the Union Fire Company, which is considered the forerunner of the Philadelphia Fire Department. So that's the photographs. The book of photos from this project are scheduled to be published by Tersolo Press later this year, and I'll make sure all of you get a notice of when it's available. So thank you for watching, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
It's a wonderful presentation, Ted. Everybody, feel free if you want to make a comment to unmute yourselves and or ask a question. And before we get started, just like to mention that after the video played at the first when it first started, Ted, after it played, Ben Zuckerman posted a note saying that's an excellent video essay about the firemen and the EMT people. Great job, Ted.
Well, thank you.
Couldn't say it better. So the floor is open.
Ted, maybe you can talk a little bit about the safety concerns that the firefighters have and how the union might play into that.
Very interesting question. All the time I spent with these guys, no one ever talked about the union. Um, and I didn't push it because, I wasn't doing an article or an analysis. I was trying to stay in the background as much as possible. Um, so we just didn't talk about it. Interestingly enough, officers, the officers of the department, meaning the lieutenants, the captains, they're not considered supervisors, at least under state law. And so they were all part of the union. Um, Safety apart from the union is a pretty big deal in this kind of job. They do a lot of training, and Lieutenant, now Captain Walter, took the lead a lot of times conducting training on different things about safety and about the safe operation of the apparatus, even when it's, late at night.
Thank you.
Yep.
Ted,
Yes.
do you think that you wouldn't have seen much presence of a union because the tensions that often arise or are present in the background when you have supervisory staff and then classified employees are not in this setting the way you would normally see them?
That's a good theory. I don't know. I suspect part of it is those are the kinds of things that happen during day shifts. And, night, because a lot of times guys are working two shifts at a time, because there's a lot of, filling in gaps. Somebody calls out sick, they got to get somebody there because you need a certain minimum number of people on those trucks to safely or successfully operate it. And So they'll pull somebody off a shift that's just ended and say, "Can you stay another 12 hours?" And a lot of the younger guys, younger men and women, will say, "Sure," because it's exciting. They like it, and they could use the money. So other than that, I don't know.
Does the local have a monthly publication? Like the Mine Workers has a journal that comes out every month?
Um, I didn't see one. There would be a letter. They do have a dedicated union bulletin board there, but I never saw anything particularly interesting in it, other than, administrative things that people would be interested in.
Thanks.
Margie,
Ed, I want to congratulate you. I've been, Barry and I have been going to dinner with you and Gail and listening to the stories of you doing this. I'm so happy you're at this moment and I congratulate you.
thank you.
Beautiful photos. Was there any pushback at all from folks not wanting you to take photos of them doing certain actions, maybe concerned that if they did it improperly, you know, they would get some pushback from that? Did anyone give you any issues about, not, I'm not talking about the department or the key managers, but the rank and file?
Not really. The What would happen occasionally is I'd go out with the battalion chief, and he would be there with firefighters from other firehouses that had not seen me before. And here's this guy running around. He's not in uniform, and he's taking pictures of us. And God knows that these, right? And so occasionally they would say, excuse me, sir, who are you? Right? And I'd tell them. But usually what happened is they'd ask the battalion chief or one of the officers from our firehouse, who's this guy? And they just say, he's with us. He's our staff photographer. He's doing a story about us. You should get, somebody to do a story about you. And that would calm it right down.
Great, wonderful.
Ted,
Yes.
I'm Linda.
Go ahead.
I'm Linda Trithel. I'm Norman's wife, Norman Familat's wife.
Yes, of course you are.
Okay.
Good
So
to-
it's great. It's a fabulous. I love. We had talked and he said, "Well, what's your favorite?" And I'm like, I don't have a favorite. You did a wonderful job. I had two questions really. One is, did you when after you were going and spending time with them, did you write a journal? Did you keep a journal? And the other question I had is, out of all of those photographs that you probably took, how did you choose which ones you chose?
Both excellent questions. I wouldn't say that I kept a journal, but I did keep a notebook. And I would, just so I could, keep things, keep track of what was going on. I would every night I was there, I would write down who were the officers for the night, what we had for dinner, every call that I went out on, and then everything we watched on TV that night. Because I quickly began to see that, these people were different than me. They were all much younger, and their choices in television were really, really unique. Right? I saw things on TV that I never thought I'd see. There were two movies back to back. There were, volume one and volume two of the war between the werewolves and the vampires. I mean, really, some people were into horror movies. Some people were into. I saw, 3 hours straight of Seinfeld, 4 hours of The Family Guy. Um, no, the
Yeah,
Last of Us on is it Netflix or HBO? You know, just stuff amazing. So that's what I recorded. And how did I choose the photograph? The photographs for the 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 slideshow. I was trying to show both, the easy, laid back, quiet side, and then the side when they're racing out to the door. And I was trying to time it to the music and, you know, for the book, my editor actually chose the photos. So.
Ed, this is Barry. I've got
Yeah.
one question, kind of a related question. Um, Many fire departments historically have had significant issues bringing on people of color and women into the service. Uh, um, what were your observations? I mean, obviously there are people of color and women in the photographs, but do you have any observations or reflections on those questions in terms of your, I guess, 45 nights and many hours? That's 450 hours by my count or more, almost 500 hours that you spent in the company of the house.
Um, I can't speak for the whole department, but for the people that I was with and I was with one platoon all the time, but people who were not regular members would flow in and out depending on who was out that night and who was sick and so forth. So I did get to meet a fair number of people. Um, what you saw is pretty representative, that there were a lot of African Americans um, and people of Hispanic descent, people from Middle East, and not a huge number of women, but a growing number, and that people worked well together. That whatever they really felt about each other, they didn't share it with me, and they didn't present it in the on in the work time, and they mingled together on and off. So I actually thought it was pretty encouraging, particularly given the history of fire departments generally.
Thank you.
Barry Edwards had a question.
Yeah. Hi, Ted. Great presentation.
Oh, thanks.
As a albeit retired psychiatrist, I'm interested in what you saw in the way of emotional trauma, psychological trauma there. And did you find any of the experience, traumatic for yourself? And what else did you see about those people that, were seeing these pretty potentially traumatic things happen to other people?
Um, I did not get any sense of that. Um, I don't think there were any traumatic events during any of the time when I was physically there. And in fact, after a fire, people tended to come back to the station pretty pumped You know, this is what they were trained to do. This is why they joined. Um, and you know, they'd be sitting around drinking coffee, having another piece of the leftover desserts. You know, some people would have another dinner at that point. You know, we're talking 2, 3 in the morning. So, you know, I'm sure there was trauma, but it was not something that I was exposed to. Now, there was one night, excuse me, early one morning, I woke up and found that there had been a major fire, and some of the people from our firehouse were there, and a fighter died in the fire, and I spoke to one of our officers who had been real friendly with them, right? And he was just, you know, he said, yeah, it's really terrible, but he was, you know, at least on the surface, completely in control on the job, you know. Um, you know, they're professional. I I so I don't want to speculate on anything else because I just don't know.
Ted, it's Holden.
Yes.
I think you did a great job of capturing what goes on, various levels of no activity and very active. I've run for 30 years with a firefighting organization. It's not firefighting. We provide R&R in the city. So I've seen the other side of what you didn't see, what you get on a fire ground where there's a lot of emotion because of the intensity of the fire, or in case I've been at a fire ground where firemen have died and the whole atmosphere on the ground, you just feel it. It just permeates everything that's going on. And you didn't get the sense that it's an event that you live with once you've been there. And the other thing that's always interesting is the camaraderie that you witness, especially in intense situations. And I don't know if you had a chance to see much of that or not, whether you saw real fires that called for real uh, efforts to get things under control.
There really were one of the things you may have noticed from the photographs is the absence of flames.
Right.
Because
Didn't see any flames.
even when I was at fires, you know, there would be uh, they would either be small fires or they would be in the walls or they would be inside the building and taken care of. And there were just none of those dramatic, you know, flames the night, you know, but I was there 45 nights and, you know, 4 years. And it was not infrequent that I would go one night and they would say, "Hey, Ted, how you doing? You should have been with us last night. You wouldn't believe it. A car blew up and we had, you know." And if I was there the first night, they worked 2 nights in a row. The next week they'd say, "Oh man, nothing happened that night you were with us." And then the next night, you know, so it's just the, you know, the luck of the draw. And one of the reasons I kept doing this project was because I thought, God, I need some flames in this thing. And and
So
then
they give you running gear?
sorry,
Did they give you running gear?
uh,
Helmet and the jacket and all to
uh,
run with?
I just wore my usual, you know, going out to my danger zone, you know.
Really blended in, right?
Well, I didn't do too
No,
badly.
no,
Uh,
I know. I'm just saying.
but
I'm kidding.
but they um, I realized in some ways this was a good thing because I think the flames tend to obscure the point of these are individuals working as a team, and I wanted to show that teamwork, and who these people were, and not just, you know, if you're focusing on the fire-breathing dragon, then you tend not to look at the people that are fighting the dragon, and that was my real thing. JD, did you have a question?
And you're speaking to it. I was first. It's a really wonderful way to honor this work on behalf of all of us. I have two sons in Philadelphia and their families, and I'm very appreciative of that work and of your tribute to them. I wondered whether they've seen some of these presentations and what their feedback to you is at this stage.
I violated one of the cardinal rules of journalism, which is I showed them this. I showed the officers this before I publicly presented it because I wanted to make sure, A, that I didn't make mistakes in how I characterized them and who the people were, and B, that I did not inadvertently violate any internal confidentiality rules. For example, I knew that there was a strict prohibition against showing any medical victims, right? Which was one of the reasons I never actually traveled in any of the ambulances. So there are no pictures of victims where you can identify who they are. I spent a lot of time seeing medical victims, usually overdose victims in the subway stations, where they use Narcan to great effect.
Thanks.
And Wendy Hartman had her hand up.
Yes.
Hi, Ted. Wendy from Los Angeles. I thought you did a great job with the shots, and a lot of emotion was shown in the shots. It was really very enjoyable. What I wanted to ask you is, from a photographic standpoint, you did a lot of night shots, and I'm assuming you didn't use a flash. So what were you opening up your camera to as far as getting like the movement and a lot of the light back in?
Excellent question. I deliberately did not use any external flash, strobe, anything, and I didn't have heavy equipment. I had two cameras. I was using Nikon D850s, which are I think well known for having extremely sensitive sensors to capture images, and I was cranking them up to what we call ISO 16 or 18,000, which means you're really pushing the camera to its maximum ability. And when you take a photo like that, it's very grainy or very noisy. And so I would then run it through Lightroom to use noise reduction. So what's in the photos is a fair and accurate representation of what took place, but it's a little smoother than, than the camera could do completely on its own. Does that answer the question?
It does. That was great because I didn't realize Lightroom did that much noise reduction if you're using it that high, the ISO that high. And the speed in most cases, what were you?
I was because I have a tremor in my hand, I keep the shutter speed at least 200 or 250. And I would shoot pretty much, I was using either a 24-70 millimeter telephoto lens, a zoom lens, and a 70-200. So I was always shooting at f2.8 aperture.
Okay, that's great. You did a great job. Thank you. Enjoyed it.
Thank you. Earl. You're muted. You're muted, Earl.
Is that better?
Yes. Much
Okay. Thank you, Ted. I'm coming in from Silver Spring, Maryland, and thank you for the invitation for joining the group this evening. I am really impressed by the fact that you named almost every subject that you photographed, that it was a personal story that really, excuse me a second, that really resonated, and the camaraderie came through in a beautiful way. The mixed lighting you handled remarkably well. Maybe you could give some thoughts about a few of your thoughts about how you managed to calm the disparate lighting temperatures in any given scene that you were photographing.
I think my answer is going to be horrible because I just had it on auto white balance, and I can't think of. I'm sure there were some photos that I would adjust from that, but not many. I mean, it's when you're at night and you're fighting for any light you can, and it's fire trucks, right? And they got the red and blue lights that are flashing. It creates its own dynamic. And trying to, I did not want to worry about trying to make it more realistic. I wanted to keep the unrealism, if you will, in it. So,
Well, the skin tones in most instances did have tints that occurred because of the external lights, but for the most part, there was a real natural feel, and you didn't get these ghoulish looks with the tints that often occur in the mixed lighting situation. I congratulate you on this project and sticking at it for such a long period of time. Obviously, you embedded yourself in the best possible way with the firefighters. Congratulations.
well, thank you. And I should tell other people on this call that Earl is, in my opinion, one of the finest documentary photographers in the country of his generation. And I learned a tremendous amount looking at his photos of mine workers over the years, starting in the 70s when you were at the United Mine Workers. And so the kind words from you are really meaningful to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Hillary.
Oh, I'm curious about your process between documenting and creativity. I feel like I saw one shot in the slideshow where glass was coming out of a window, and it looked like I'm wondering if you were like, oh my God, I got the shot. Like how much of it you were thinking of what the shot was and how much you were just documenting?
A great question. Um, I think my process was I started by when I started out, I didn't know how long I'd be there with them, or who would be around. And so I spent more time documenting, right? So I'd take pictures at dinner every night I was there. Well, after the 20th dinner, I'm thinking, all right, I've nailed that shot, maybe I should do something else, so I stood up on a bench and shot, down on them. Um, I'd started doing close-ups of the so you could see the pork chops frying on the right. Um, and the glass thing was, that was one fire. I think I took 500 shots that night at that one fire. And I had to stay a certain distance away so that I wouldn't die. Um, And in fact, when the glass blew out, I realized I wasn't quite far enough back. Um, but I just, that was luck, just catching that. And I thought that was more art, added to the thing. My editor didn't want to put it in the book, however. What can I say? But it was a dynamic that I was, the more I got into it, the more I was thinking about that.
Great job. Beautiful.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Ted, I don't know if you see him, but John Basili has
Hi.
has his hand up.
I see. I'm sorry.
Hi. That's okay. Ted, I just want to say great presentation. Captain Johnson, I see you're here. Thank you so much for doing what you do. Appreciate you very much. My question is sort of for both of you, actually. Is there anything less obvious about someone who's a photographer following around a battalion of firefighters at night versus during the day? Obviously, you'll get to where you're going quicker. It might be a different crowd on the streets, but is there anything less obvious that you might want to point out as far as the night versus day? I think any other questions I had about the technicalities of capturing the picture were already asked. So what was special about doing this at night in particular that we might not pick up on normally?
I think if Captain Johnson is here, I would like to hear from him.
Yeah, me too. Both of you. But yeah.
Captain Johnson.
I am here. Good evening. I wanted to stay mute and just enjoy the presentation and the purpose and the technicality that went behind what you've done. It is truly awesome, amazing, and responsible. I appreciate you. Our connection that we had was unspoken, but shared most definitely. I don't want to bring myself to tears. I'm in an emotional space right now. But thank you for everything. I appreciate you, and I appreciate your panel's comments. I'm learning a lot as well. But just to answer the question directly, of course, the most obvious thing is that the citizenry is more not present, which allows us to evaluate a scene a little bit more effectively with a little less focus put on the parameters of safety that has to expand to the general pop that is present during the day.
Less bonkers.
Yes.
I got you.
And lastly, for Ted choosing to do this at night, I think as you all have recognized, he caught an intimacy that you will not see in the fire department during the daytime hours.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Anyone else?
Kay Claire has raised her hand.
Yes.
Hi, Ted.
Or him?
It's Carl.
It might be him. Yes.
Oh, Carl. Okay. Sorry about that, Carl.
Ted, it's just magnificent pictures, and you captured the as Captain Johnson said, the intimacy and the teamwork and the camaraderie so beautifully. I just was curious. You mentioned at one point that the response time, if they get a call and they're supposed to be in the truck, is 60 seconds. But what you showed is, you said some people were asleep, some people are cooking, some people are watching television. So how did they make the 60 seconds? How did they pull themselves out of whatever space they were in to get on the truck?
I don't know if that was, and Captain Johnson might want to comment on it. I never heard anybody say that was the requirement. I started timing it when I was, when certain calls happen. When a call came in for an ambulance, it was usually, many of those calls were not emergencies, right? the medics would, get to their ambulance, in a few minutes and, go out because they were going out and coming back constantly. But there was a certain call which I heard. I don't know if it was the first night I was there or a few nights after, where it was 3 o'clock in the morning and most of the lights were out, and suddenly the every light in the station pops up, and a really loud bell rings and keeps ringing, and the watch officer yells, "High rise! Everybody out, high rise," which means it's a potentially major fire in one of the densely populated areas in Center City. And people literally would leap out of bed, stop whatever they were doing, and run to the trucks. I think the first time that happened, I'd jump in the back of the engine. There's a back seat, and there's seats on either, and I had to get in the middle, and the guys are leaping in on both sides, swinging their gear because they're putting on the fire retardant uniforms, the hats, the oxygen tanks on the back. They're grabbing an axe, right? I'm getting hit in the head with a oxygen tank and just trying to, and I keep looking. I remember the first few times I'm reaching for the seatbelt. I can't find the goddamn seatbelt because they're locked together so that the seatbelt alarm isn't going off constantly, right? So I'm just bracing myself in the middle there. But we were literally out of there within 60 seconds. The doors automatically roll up, the lights are on, the siren is screaming, we're racing down your heart starts pumping a little faster, and you're awake.
Well, why don't we take a couple more questions, and then Eileen, you can let us know what's coming up. There's a couple really nice comments here in the chat. Ted, Janora says, "I have to drop off. Thank you so much for this lovely presentation and for giving us a view into this world." Mark Bernstein says, "Thanks for the great presentation, Ted." Larry Whitner, "The short video was terrific, Ted, as was your presentation of the individual photos. Congratulations." J.D. Ball, "Thank you for this invitation. Interesting, informative, and admirable work. For the group, I'll note that Ted has been at this longer than you know. In ninth grade, he phoned his classmates for their reactions to seeing the Beatles on as Sullivan in a newsletter, in preparation for a school newsletter. And I was one of those he called. So there's a recollection for you." And then Justin Lowry says, "Thanks, Ted. Poignant and telling." And I can just say thanks on behalf of everybody here. But Eileen, where are you? Oh, there you go.
I'm somewhere around here.
Okay.
Ted, we're looking forward to your book. Can't wait.
Yeah.
We'll send it out to everyone. And just thank you so much for really, and that's the whole purpose of the Photographic Society's third Tuesday Zoom presentation. Did you learn something tonight? Then we succeeded. And that's it. That's the whole goal of the Photographic Society of Philadelphia. Give us an hour. Give us an hour, and you'll learn something. This may not the type of photography that you want to do, or you may be inspired to do this type of photography, and that's our goal.